Board Meeting with Nat, where new leadership meets the waves of change. Dive with me into discussions on personal development, on transformation, a salty format, captivating, motivating stories and interviews with industry leaders and inspiring personalities. Welcome to another episode of Board Meeting with Nat. I'm your host, Natalie Kirkoroglu, and today we have a very exciting topic, the currency of the future. And guess what? It's not Bitcoin. It is relationships. Yes, you heard right. Relationships is our topic today, a very important topic. I can do things you cannot do, and you can do things I cannot do. And together we can do great things. That's a quote from Mother Teresa. When you're successful, you have people behind you that are supporting you. You have a strong network. With me today in the studio is Marcella, and she's a relationship coach and also an agile consultant. She recently did a TED Talk in Boston about relationships. And welcome with me, Marcella. It's great to have you here. Would you mind to introduce yourself?
Happy to. So my name is Marcella. I'm a conscious relationship coach. I am certified. I have started as systemic coach actually 8 years ago and went into the world of corporate and organization as systemic and agile coach, which led me into the world of relationships. I soon understood it's all about the way we relate, the success of our product, the success of what we want to achieve, and ultimately the happiness and retention of people. And from there, I took lessons into my own life and started looking more into everyday relationships, romantic relationships, which really caught my passion. So conscious relationships has been in my life for, I want to say, we are all human beings, right, since forever, but very consciously for the past 10 years. And recently, I got to stand on the TEDx stage. I also host the Modern Couples Online Summit. But really what I also love for myself is to go on this adventure called entrepreneurship and see how, we all ripple with our purpose into the world and make it a world that's worth living in, is worth, being human, is worth understanding what your gift is and bringing it into the world. So that's my mission, my purpose, what I stand up for.
In the TED Talk, you talked about the future currency, that it's relationships. Would you summarize it a bit? I mean, I listened to it, I watched it, but I think also our listeners are very curious to hear.
That moment on stage, it was incredible. So for me, it was really a summary and condensed version of what I had experienced over the past 4 years in the entrepreneurial world when I started Modern Couples and went through my own journey. Well, what started with a breakup. At the moment when I started my business, half a year, 8 months later, I was looking at the end of my relationship. And it was really a wake-up call, and I show that in my TEDx talk, how that moment when you feel like your life crumbles and someone is pulling away the floor underneath you, how you are asked in that moment, do you fall? Do you keep on falling? Are you going to be the victim of the story? Or what is it that, we need to shift for all future generations to come? So it's a moment for me that I say, rise to the occasion, right? Rise to this momentum. Do something nobody else in your family has done before. Do something where you don't have a plan for. When it comes to relationships, very often we have stories in our mind. How to end a relationship, how to start a relationship, how to do Christmas together, how to do introductions, this and that. But really to come up with your own script of how to build a relationship, like that is one key takeaway that I want to convey to listeners. But then I take it from this momentum of your everyday relationships and your everyday drama that is playing out. If you are not willing to invest time and energy into handling that better, differently, every day a little bit better or more conscious, then how can you expect to see anything else in the world, right? How you show up in your relationships in your day-to-day has an impact on how you show up in your workspace for your relationships, has an impact for how you show up in that board meeting, or how you as a politician show up in your on the political stage. And what we see is conflicts and war and, parties fighting against each other. Collectively, we feel more and more frustration around the subject of how are we going to do this thing together on planet Earth. How do we gonna show up stronger together, right? We all want that. We all want connection, but we don't know how. So I take it back to, if you wonder how, like the next moment that you are frustrated, that's the moment for you to step up the game and be that inspiration that you want to see in the world. Like that is, in a nutshell, like all the pathways of my TED Talk. And when I say relationships are the currency of the future, what I mean is relationships oftentimes are looked at from an angle of short-term success. This relationship is costing me so much energy. We fight too often, we put all these short-term perspectives and labels on it. But really, what I think we are craving more and more also in the years to come is a relationship where you know that even in the hard times, we are still going to be together. We show up for each other. So relationships really show their value over the course of time and over the, let's say, mastering the challenging waves of life together, surfing those waves of life together, where, you know, with the ocean as well, you never know how it's going to be tomorrow. The only thing you know is that the change is constant. Waves will always be different, and you cannot change.
And you will be out there, right?
Yes, yes, you will be out there, or you stay, safe in your harbor. But a ship was not built to stay safe in the harbor. We are meant to relate. That's the metaphor. We are meant to be in relationships, and we are meant to be in relationships that help us grow, that inspire us to grow. Many of us believe that relationships are hard work. It's like this mantra that we hear all over and over again. And so if we just believe that, then nobody of us is willing to do the actual work that can be joyful and fun. There is a little bit of learning that, can be done. You can actually learn a few things and it becomes easier, more joyful. It helps if we speak somewhat of a same language, which is not English, German, but if we can convey certain concepts around boundaries, around triggers, if we have that shared language, it becomes so much easier and joyful and you can connect on a deeper level.
I feel like when you just say, okay, we want to have the fun side, after a few years, you lose the fun side and it becomes a little bit more work because you have to, go through things. And if you just wait for the fun part, it's, I think, maybe also a trap. You know what I mean?
Totally.
But I understand what you try to say, that it's maybe also like a limited belief if you're just manifesting, it's work, it's hard. And so I think it's still work, but we should have fun doing the work.
Relationships are not always fun. I think we are here as humans, we are here to experience the full spectrum of emotions. And emotions is a subject or a chapter that many would like to just, hide under the table and not talk about it. Once we start honoring the fact that many of us have been raised in a family where we didn't learn how to be with the full range of emotions, it becomes easier to accept that another person gets triggered or that I might actually have to learn to be also with the sadness, also with the grief, also with the anger. In my workshops, I oftentimes experience how many people have no access to anger or how anger was suppressed by their parents, by people around them, right? It was shamed. But actually, if you don't have access to anger, for example, then you lose a big part of power, because from anger, there's also an energy to change something, to move something, right? So to learn how to be with full range of emotions makes you, feeling internally safe with all of them and takes out the judgment so that actually, if we are in a moment of complete joy, like you embrace it fully, right? Because you also know you can handle the other side. I say there's this big movement of good vibes only. And if you fully embrace the good vibes only movement, I know where it's coming from and I understand it. Like, let's say media is focusing on giving us emotionally triggering stories that are not often good vibes. But the moment that you say, in my relationships, it's good vibes only, you suppress the other side and you somewhat might end up with not getting authenticity from the other person because the other person doesn't feel safe to actually show the range of emotions, which sometimes come as waves. So I would say your relationships, ideally, over time, you develop the skills to handle all waves of emotions, the full range, and put in the work, but don't associate it with hard work that is, like something where in the end of the day you go to bed frustrated. No, like it's a workout, right? We can strengthen our muscles to hold space for each other. And just like there's many gym rats out there, you can actually enjoy doing that. And you can actually enjoy having that authenticity with your peers, with your friends. That is something where I like to bridge to the part of what is different in our times. What is the challenges of our times that actually make it appear as hard work? In our time, we experience things change faster than ever. In our time, we have more unpredictability out there. And that is influencing our nervous system, the way how we are able to handle stress and the way how emotions will show up. We can really ask ourselves, am I coming from a place of self-optimization? Am I missing out on a learning opportunity here? How can I open my heart to this experience? When do I know when it's time to let go or actually show up and rise? That's sometimes balancing act and not super easy. But I think that's where we get to remember what it means to be human and not just say, I'm only here for the fun or I have to stay and do forever the hard work. Like, no, there's obviously the full range also of options.
Right, we are all different, and at some point we will trigger each other. Maybe a bit more, maybe less. Some people trigger you definitely more. And when we jump now to the workplace, when I had conflicts at work, or I was like, oh, this situation is triggering me now, and how do I react? What do I feel? Why do I feel that? And to have this awareness and also self-responsibility to check in with yourself. I think that's so important. I always say it's the same with relationships, right? If you have a partner, hopefully you have someone who is also self-reflected. If you don't have that, it's more challenging. But yeah, the same situation at work. If you have a colleague who's also self-reflected, or a team or a boss who's self-reflected, it's much easier.
It makes all the difference, yeah.
What would you recommend people that are in conflict situations at work?
So doing the inner work makes all the difference in how you show up in your workplace. We think I'm doing something for my private life, right? We think, oh, I'm going to therapy, I'm working on couples therapy, I do all these things on my relationship game for my private life or the conflict there, but actually it improves how you show up in your workspace. And you will notice if people have done inner work or not. And as someone who has done inner work, you spot them and you're like, oh, my friends, right? With these people, you feel instantly safer because you know you have a shared language or a shared ground to work with. The minimum we want is harmony in the team so that we can handle the challenges that are coming at us as a company. If we start fighting as a team, we are not ready to compete with the market. It's an actual challenge. And in that workspace, we often don't have the time and energy to actually, look in there and see like, what is actually underneath the surface? What is the subconscious in the parties involved that actually got hurt and triggered and probably will erupt again at some point, right? Like and this is where I sometimes struggle with the business world. I think over the past years, we have done a lot to bring more human-centeredness into the workspace, but we are coming from a very high level where we just try to put Band-Aids over certain things, which is already good than not having that, right? But with the agile movement, we try to bring in more of encouragement to do the inner work. We want to encourage people to show up more as human. But if it's not coming intrinsically from them, it's really hard. So we need to find these Band-Aid solutions or somewhat of, okay, we dedicate a time box to it. We do certain questions, certain things. And it's so important to create a safe space where people feel that they are heard, that they are seen, that they are valued, so that we can actually bring in their diverse background, their diverse opinions. A conflict often comes from, I don't feel heard, seen, valued in some point. And for that, I bring my emotion or I fight for it. And then I either collapse eventually and just, shut up and will never ever say something again. The worst thing that can happen for you in a workplace. Or they will, start fighting and, not even with the intention of finding an inclusive answer. But
so it's just ego in that moment.
In that moment, it can turn towards that, right? So the art of fighting or the art of having an argument, it's really a thing. And it's something that you typically develop and invest in your private life. Because let's say the company does not necessarily do the inner work for each and every one of you, also because it's an imperative that you sign up and say, I want to do the inner work. I feel motivated to do it. I'm willing to look into my childhood traumas, my shadows. I'm willing to learn how to regulate my nervous system, how to take on other people's perspectives. It's all something intrinsically from you. And that's the challenge that we have in the workplace. How can I find a good enough solution for a conflict, knowing that not everybody is yet ready to do the inner work, knowing that it would be the ultimate sustainable solution.
I just had this thought, what if this would be a recruitment criteria to check, exactly this?
When it comes to recruitment, what to say? Like, we are heading into a world where more and more AI and algorithms and just, screening happens for many companies, right, that are just checking for words that are being used. And I feel we are missing out on a lot when it comes to that. And it's this dynamic of, on the one hand, with AI and all these digital tools that we now have, we are creating so much more content, so much more noise, and therefore we need so much more technology and so much more support to actually filter.
That's true.
Right? Like, ideally, I would send out, this job position and say, these are the criteria. And I wouldn't get 1,000 applications, but I would really know that a person, let's say, not only has done the inner work, but knows their life mission and purpose, has really like fire for this job, because it makes a difference, right? And so maybe it's just a handful of people that really apply because they really feel it in their heart. Like, that would be like the ideal stage, right? And then they would feel super safe to say, yeah, I've done this, I've done that. Like, oftentimes I ask myself, what are the skills of the future? And I think one skill for you as a leader is to understand that we are living in a time where many words will be used that are not representing the actual truth. Let's say it like that.
In which context do you mean that?
So, for example, I know certain words need to be in my resume in order to, get in there, right? Or I know, let's look at it's my number one example. Let's look at the customer service department. It has become, especially in the last 4 years, so common that you write as a customer and you will receive an email and it has all these flowery words. Like, it starts instantly with like, you are the king and queen of our company. Thank you for taking the time, reaching out, blah, 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 like so many sentences. And then they say something and it does not even touch at all the question you had, right? Like, you just receive something.
So that's from AI. It's just a bot answer.
I don't know who is writing these things, but very often I'm like, I would pay extra to just get a short human answer that might be triggering, but I actually can move on, right? Like,
exactly,
if you don't have the answer, you don't have the answer, and let's move on. But oftentimes, and it ends with like, we so appreciate you, la 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 la, and I'm like, if you appreciated me, you would have read my message clearly, right? So there is a world, and that's just one example, but I feel like there's a lot of words being used, convey, like with the best intention of conveying this and that, but actually I don't feel the words have a meaning anymore.
So it's not authentic, it doesn't come from the heart.
Yeah. It's done to efficiently reply to the amount of messages that comes in. So I understand that.
Of course,
and I always have to adapt for it. And I'm like, but
it doesn't touch. I think that's the thing. It's the same when you apply for a job and you would just use ChatGPT. There's no personality in it, right?
You feel that as a applicant.
In the meantime, I can see the text and I know the filler words from ChatGPT and I'm like, okay. Yeah.
So you need to develop that skill, and all of a sudden, in a way, words have become, in certain areas, meaningless. And there's a quality if you, as business, as leader, actually put meaning behind your words again. And at the same time, now we were with the applications, right? To understand what is not said in the application, that is the other side of, how do I see if someone has done the inner work? Would they write inner work, check? Or, how do they actually show that? If you really want to see how a person shows up, you embrace those conflict situations and you hold space to see how people show up in these situations. Are they able to regulate their nervous system? Are they able to express their opinion? Do they show up with inner security and safety to actually dare to say the controversial, the triggering, the non-majority opinion? And then can you as owner and leader create a safe space where other opinions can also be put on the table And so we see, is there an inclusiveness happening? Is there multi-perspectivity happening? And in that you can see so much, and you don't need to see, have they been to therapy or not? Like, this is the moment where you really see the people that you want to hold onto, because more and more things are happening, and that is where we build trust.
Maybe also the other way around. When you apply for a job, how can you test your leader, your manager? It's also important. It's not a one-way street. And it's sometimes very difficult because, the job interviews always is it feels like honeymoon, right? Mm-hmm. And everything is perfect. And I feel like people see the troubles after a few months, right? After the honeymoon phase.
I mean, when it comes to couples, we have this saying that in the first 6 months of dating, so to say, the honeymoon phase, right? Like, that's where we usually find the root cause to all the troubles that we will have 7 years later, right? So, like, very often I'm like, please come to couples coaching right away so we can really work on, getting to know each other, building that trust, building the foundation of your relationship so that you really have established values, shared language, understanding for childhood trauma, done the inner work, so that you don't have that problem 7 years. And it's similar to the job position, right? Isn't there this saying of you join a company because of the brand and you leave because of leadership, so to say, right? Definitely, if you have a chance, you apply to a job, but they also get to show you who they are. So from your side, and here we come back to the email that you receive, right? Like, is it just flowery words? I pay a lot of attention to actions following words. Like, do they have a meaning? Because I personally know that about me. It's like in my relationship handbook that I get safety through words, through the meaning of words. I believe, we are in this time where companies are equally interested to really find a match, to really find a person that stays, that is reliable. So they also have an interest that you test good enough. I think over the past years, there were these moments when people would just not show up, right? Like, signed a contract and just didn't come. Like, I've heard that story. It happened in one of my former companies. It's testing for both sides.
Exactly, yeah. I just thought, in a company context, it's different, of course, because your manager can change, right? The whole situation can change. When you're a leader, you have so much change these days. In a relationship, it's hopefully not that wild, that you change that many times the partner. But I think that's also a challenge. Maybe you start, everything is perfect, and then the structures change.
When I started as leadership coach and when we worked with agile methods, it was the answer to the VUCA world, right? The volatile, unpredictable, complex world. And we were developing tools how to handle that. Now it has changed in the sense that it's not even uncertain and unpredictable. It's like irrational, like things just happen out of the blue and the mind or logic can no longer comprehend where this is coming from. Like, that is happening. Really, this idea that you as human, for yourself and for the people around you, one of the best and most important skills that you can develop is nervous system regulation, and really like learn how to be with change, with unpredictability, how to be with irrational things happening, because it is happening. And the better you are with your nervous system, the better you can actually make smart moves in those times and take people along. And there is enough of people who don't have capability to develop these skills, or who haven't even heard of it, and who don't know how to self-regulate, who have been in constant fight, flight, dysregulated mode latest since 2020, right? Like, the lockdown really pushed us all into dysregulation. So there's many people, let's say, whose nerves have been so under fire for the past 4 years and potentially longer without rest. And if you put that into your mind, whether you are a business owner, leader, or yourself in your everyday life, if you remember that, if you are a person who can hold space for themselves, maybe you can also give a little bit of that energy to others who have not learned about it. But that will be like skill of the future for yourself, rippling towards others, helping you to together come back and make a smart decision in that situation, knowing that there will probably not be a right or wrong decision.
Well, if you lead a team, you have to lead yourself first, right?
Yes.
You have to learn to lead your emotions, to be a good leader. Because if you don't know, if you don't like yourself, if you don't work on your shit, it's difficult.
But I feel one of the things over the past years in the corporate world especially, by now we already foresee all the strategies, right? Like, and we try to adapt to outsmart the strategies. So we are like, strategy outdated, new strategy needed, la la la. And it's like a vicious cycle where we lose trust. And the loss of trust, it's one of the biggest threats that's happening. For a leader to really know your intentions and start from a place that is well intended. Yes, test and see how people react under challenging circumstances. But the moment that you start purposefully strategizing to bring out something, you are also paying with trust. And that trust is hard to get back.
Exactly. I mean, also in private life, right?
Yes.
I mean, with friendships, relationships.
Yes.
It's hard to build, and when you lose it, it's gone.
Especially coming back to the first 6 months. Like, if you start dating with strategies, with all these strategies in mind, you are not starting from a place of authenticity. You are starting from a place of strategizing. And every time you put out that strategy, the other person either understands you are just following a script and doesn't feel safe with you. And to get back, you are paying with trust every time that you use a strategy. And it does take courage to actually open your heart, to actually, show up authentically, whether it's in private or in business. But if I've learned one thing, it's especially over the years that people that see you act according to your words and that see you show up authentically, even in a moment of stress, those people will slowly but surely build more and more trust towards you. And those will be the people that ask you for a one-on-one, this conversation about a thing that, they don't dare sharing in a boardroom. It's going to be a currency. We all crave trust as humans in the workspace and in private.
Yeah, it's funny. I watched, I think 2 days ago, a show with Drew Barrymore interviewing Matthew Hussey. He's a dating coach.
Yeah.
And he told a story how he met his wife, or actually what was like the turning point, because at some point he became a player, and he was not sure about her anymore. They were dating, and I think she was in London, he was in the US, and he was thinking, well, we're disconnected a bit. I don't feel it anymore. They didn't really talk to each other for a while. And he thought, actually, I don't want to have a distance relationship. And I actually don't want to invest. And but then one day he was like, oh, I just write her a message. And it was tactic. It was like a strategy. So he wrote her, I miss you. And she wrote back and said, I don't know what to say, to be honest, because we were not really in touch for a while. And I don't know what to answer, because we're not at that point that you should write me that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like you're seeking attention. And in that moment, he felt she's pinpointing exactly on the strategy he tried with her. And that was the moment where he thought, wow, I want to marry this woman, because she was keeping her standards high. Yeah. And she was authentic, and then she stayed quiet. So he took his time to think about that, what she wrote, and to think about the relationship. In that time, she stayed quiet because this was her standard. And he said, if it would have been a strategy, some people use strategies and write something just to get something from the other person, but it's not the value, it's not like, okay, this is my boundary. And I'm just saying this because I want you to react like that. No, she was herself. She was authentic. And because of that, he realized, okay, this is the woman
deal.
I wanna marry. And it just reminded me on that story. And I think it's the same in the workspace. So when you have your standards, your values, and you show that, you live that, people will see it. But if you just do this because you expect something or you want to manipulate, they will feel it at some point.
I love that story. And at the same time, it's exactly showing the pain we are at. This is exactly what's happening. You receive a message and you don't know if you can trust it, right? Like, you need to bring up the inner strength. This could be sent with best intention and he's really missing me, or it could be a strategy, right? Like, I'm going to risk that the other person is, just ghosting me all of a sudden or just not replying anymore. But I'm going to speak what I feel. And I think that's one of the keys when it comes to conflict management, this idea of sharing how you feel, like reporting from the front line of conflict. You are seeing something is not aligned, something is not congruent, and you are reporting from that front line of like, I don't know if I should turn left and right. And so I'm just reporting from here my thoughts and, sharing it with you, what it does to me. I feel irritated and it could be this and that. But I want to verify, so to say, right? So I'm reporting from the front how it affects me. I'm recognizing I have a movie and I don't know. So to share that and then for the other person to be like, oh, wow, like there's also hold in for a moment. But there's a person who's just reporting from their point of view how something is affecting them. They are not pointing with the finger. They are not saying it's your fault, you are the manipulator, la, la, la. It's not. There's no finger pointing whatsoever. However, you can, for yourself, feel in that moment, oh, wow, I feel naked. I feel exposed right now, right?
It needs a lot of strength, right? I mean, a lot of self-awareness to do this.
It does. And it is the shared language and the shared understanding. If we have a common understanding of, hey, I'm not trying to blame you. I'm actually trying to build more of a connection. So I'm sharing this longer text that is not yes, no, but really like I'm sharing a longer text, giving you the opportunity to meet me on a deeper level. How do you respond? Do you have time for it? Let's say urgency is a killer to deeper connection, to relationship, right? And there is so much urgency in our world. So when did he make time to actually, sit with this for a moment and be like, oh, wow, like, yeah, she put a finger in the wound and I'm not shying away. I'm actually leaning in. That's the work he was doing in that moment. And there's many who shy away from that and who don't have time for it and who are like, oh my gosh, if she sends these long messages, I'm out, right? So it's really similar in the workplace of how can we build trust. For me, I try to celebrate people when I see them actually daring to be vulnerable, daring to report from their front line. Whether it's affecting me or not, I try to celebrate their courage to actually do that and knowing that they are not often well received for that. What happens, for example, in my coachings, whether it is in group coachings or in one-on-one coachings, oftentimes there are moments when you do what I would call the right thing, like you show up with integrity and you do share with best intention how it makes you feel. And then the other person just goes like, boom, like I'm just hitting right in there or like, slap you in your face.
Also in the workplace, right?
Exactly, it happens. So the one thing that will be in that moment, I have them sitting there with me and they're like, but then I was not well received and then I had to sit with all that pain and nobody was cheering for me and nobody told me I did great. If you see that person that is doing that, even though they are not like, please share for them, like go to them, let them know.
I think it's also fear, unfortunately. This is what I saw in all the years. I don't know, I worked 15 years in bigger companies and I felt sometimes, people tell you this, oh, you were brave and you did this, and they tell you afterwards maybe, but they don't tell you in front of the others, So I thought it's also a bit of fear, which is sad because it shows the culture is actually fear-driven. It's not open. And if you would have this culture in a company where people can speak up, that's perfect. So when you can, let's say, criticize, but in a constructive way and say, hey, this is something I don't like, or I would do it different, or I don't feel comfortable here. Can we change that? It would be a completely different story. So I think it really depends as well how the environment is.
The culture and environment.
And sometimes I experienced the opposite as well. For example, it was preached, we are flexible, we're remote, and
words that have no meaning.
No, and then for me it was great in my team, but then I was in a global team meeting and we exchanged, and it was like, yeah, I'm super happy. I have this great manager and there's so much flexibility. And I thought it's the whole company because I heard the company is very flexible and, they trust the employees. And people from other departments said, oh my God, lucky you. Sometimes you have a great culture, but it's not lived in the department.
The more corporate settings, the more smaller
little
entities,
bubbles you have,
bubbles, hierarchical, its own culture, interpretation you have, right? But we are talking about leadership, and hopefully some leaders are listening. So, what is conscious relating in the workspace? There is the one aspect where we talked about the things that you can do, starting with yourself, and how it hopefully affects your team. When it comes to culture and environmental change, we know it always starts with the founder, the founding person, or the CEO leak. And from there, it ripples down. So it has to start there. Everything changes when that person has gone through a life crisis, an awakening moment. They will usually try to somewhat make small changes. And if you are a leader and you have, your tribe around you, definitely make sure that you have not only values, but also value stories. Because let's say human beings, we are storytellers. We learn through stories. So what does flexibility mean? You say flexibility, and each and every one of us has a different idea of how flexibility in my day-to-day looks like. So you need to create stories that support the value. And ideally, it's stories that, on a weekly basis, you could actually add a new story of how did we show up flexible this week, so that your team, your tribe, your employees remember, stories form how flexibility is lived here and how not. You as a leader, you decide, do I want to pursue a culture of right and wrong thinking where I try to find who did something right and wrong, in this frame of reference? Or can I create a culture where I honor experimentation, where I honor, people testing and bending the frame, making it transparent? I'm calling out all these agile values, but they have a meaning. They are not just marketing, right? But what you need to do is you need to give them meaning, and you need to do that every freaking day.
Referring to the quote of Mother Teresa, that together we can do great things. So when we're, for example, talking about building a network, a lot of people, when they think about networking, it's this superficial thing. You go on a conference and you're like, hey, what's your position? What are you doing? I love networking, but I don't like these superficial talks. I'm curious about your point on that. Building a network that gives you strength, that helps you to succeed, but also, that you give back. I mean, it's a give and take at the end, right?
Yeah. How can we bring back authenticity to networking, right? And there is strategy and theory around it. And there's, again, challenges of our modern times to it. I think we as humans, we have a psychological, mental, physical limitation to how many humans we can actually, connect with. It's our generation, the first generation that lives in globalization and digitalization with these powerful devices in their hand, where a person in Bali can send me a message that I receive at 7 a.m. in the morning, the second that, they send it, and all of a sudden a part of me is in Bali, right? It's our generation that all of a sudden has these opportunities of constant availability, staying in touch with whomever around the world. None of us has actually learned how to be with that overload of people in our network.
I have so many contacts. People just, send me requests. And sometimes I'm like, I do not even remember this person, And probably this person just sent me a request, maybe with a sentence. I don't know, but I never met this person. So that's the thing. I don't have a story with that person. And I think that's so true what you say. It's important still to have the real contacts.
The way I see things is very often in a pendulum or yin-yang movement, right? And there was a time when it was all about, the more LinkedIn contacts I have, the more valuable I am.
But it's not useful, right?
It's not
just a number. Yeah. It's the same with Instagram. Of course, in the past you could have said, I'm an influencer. I have 200,000 followers and I'm amazing. And it's a kind of reputation thing. But at the end, can you call these people when you're in trouble, when you have sorrows? No. So it's
that's where the pendulum goes to the other direction. Not even that's still the era where it was all humans, but we have seen that high numbers means high value. Therefore, all of a sudden there was a business model of just creating fake profiles, bots. With AI on the rise, you cannot be sure, is this even a person writing to you, replying to you? We are somewhat challenged to bring back trust, and it starts with your own boundaries and with your own standards around your network.
I was in Silicon Valley couch surfing for 2 weeks. It was before COVID. I always used Uber Pool. And very often you have business people in the Uber sharing a ride with you to San Francisco, for example. And they want to know what you do. This is America. I love it. So they're always like, oh, pitch me your idea. What are you doing? Where are you from? And you're 30 minutes in the cab and you tell them your story and they're like, oh, I know this lady. And oh, I will recommend you. I'll give you the LinkedIn contact. And I felt like people really want to meet you for a coffee. You know, they really want to meet you. And this was for me a great way to network because, yeah, as I said, very often we're just collecting contacts and it's worth nothing at the end.
Yes. At least give me a little bit of a story, right? Like even these 30 minutes shared in the car, give me at least that. There is cultural differences in US and Europe, definitely. And those moments are an interesting one of like, you really feel like, wow, like opportunities growing out of 30 minutes car ride.
Yeah.
Like, let's you reconsider driving on your own or sharing a car.
That was my hack.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good networking advice to just give and to see what can I bring? What can I give? What can I share? How can I bring value to another person? Maybe by connecting them to another, expert or to someone that could be helpful, or what can I share? Let's say you're coming to me and I'm listening to you and I'm like, okay, what can I, how can I support her? And to come more from that point, what can I give?
Yes.
Instead of, how can I, what can I get from you? How can you make me successful? No, the opposite. How can I support you?
It's such a powerful mindset shift to go from how can I take to what can I give, and how to actually tune in with your own capabilities and heart to give from that place, because that's equally a moment where you need to check in. Am I giving and expecting actually something back? Or am I giving and can fully let go whatever the outcome is? It has a little bit of that karmic energy, but the moment that you tune into the frequency of I am here to be of service, I am here to give my gifts, my talents, my knowledge, my network to this opportunity or to this being that where I clearly see they would benefit from it, and I'm willing to let go of whatever the outcome is. You should feel good in that moment. And it usually happens when you know that your glass is full, right? If you know, very often I feel grounded, I feel safe, I feel belonging, I actually, have my relationships at place, a stable, safe life. That's usually a moment when you feel like, I can give. It can also happen earlier, but very often that's the moment when people feel like, no, actually, I can give. For many, it happens when they have a certain financial amount. There's this theory called spiral dynamic. Maybe you also heard of spiral dynamic, right? Where we go through different developmental stages. One of them is the orange stage, which is very capitalistic driven, or like success, and it's ego driven. Like I need to succeed, and it has a little bit of the character like things have to flow to me, right? And all of a sudden, to develop out of that stage or like into the next stage, it's the idea of like I am enough, I have enough. Might take a moment to get to that stage where you're not just strategically giving, strategically in the sense I give so I get back, but I'm actually giving and let go. I have a friend, a mentor who is for the past, I think, five years already deep into the gift economy, the idea of really being of service, and all things offered to the public are a gift. And in the sense of you decide if and what you want to give back to me, but there is no expectation, A, that you have to, and B, that it has to be a minimum maximum. So to say, it's also not a donation. It's not, donation-based. You have to give a donation. But it's really requiring you to think completely different about human connection and the value that comes after a certain amount of time, right? We have that very often. I know designer friends who work on design work and they are debating about what price tag to put on the design work that I hand you over today, knowing that it might be worth so much more 10 years from now, right? But how can I charge whatever it's going to be worth in 10 years? And it requires that person to think back of like, who was there 10 years ago that made sure I succeed today? And can I send them a love note? Can I send them a gift? Can I somewhat, feed that network, give back from a place of giving?
It's also a bit like this pay forward.
Yeah.
You know that?
Yes.
Movement. I love that so much because it's not about, it happened to me many times actually in the US, where people really supported me, helped me. And I wanted to give them something and said, no, just help somebody else. And I was like, oh my God, this is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So often we try to achieve alone what was meant to be for the group and for the tribe. And it makes all the difference if, you have so much talent and so much to give, but just like all you need is one person to ignite that fire or one person to give a little bit of their energy to give you that push. We are here to spark that fire in others. We are here to inspire and to support others get into their radiance. We are not here to succeed alone. We are here to make this, together.
I'm just thinking, if you have that in a team, how amazing is that, right? Let's say if you have a leader and he recruits people that are really supportive. I experienced that actually one time in a company where people were just helping each other, and it was a big tech company, and it was clear you can't achieve this alone. And it was normal that you wrote in Slack and you said, hey, I need help with this and that. And you wrote to somebody you do not know, either in India or in the US or somewhere else, right? And people were so supportive. They took the time to support you because they knew, okay, they also started at some point and they needed help.
Yeah.
And, then maybe a few months later, somebody else comes to you and says, hey, could you support with this question? I don't know what to do. And you take the time. You're not like,
yes,
I'm busy, I have no time, because this is also what I experienced in other companies. So I was so surprised. I thought, wow, this is amazing. And yeah.
And
should be like this everywhere, seriously.
And here's the thing. The moment that you experience that we are in a state of lack and you don't receive that support, or the moment that you feel someone is actually, manipulating or hurting you, you carry that wound into every future job or future interactions. So, what you describe, that's amazing. You want that. You want a culture where we all give forward. The moment that you as leader or in your team start, so to say, holding back information or like creating this moment of, I need to outsmart the thing, like that's something they carry in their nervous system for all future jobs to come. I call it the heartache wound. It's like
it's horrible.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, people, I think it's so important to be aware of that because I think most people do not know that, right? And it happens and you're just carrying this heavy bag with you and you're just reacting. And probably, if I listen to you, I would think this person at some point starts to be like a one-man show, because then you're like, okay, people, reacted really rude and they were like, I don't help you, I don't have time, blah, 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 blah. So you're like, I just do my thing. I don't know. Yeah. I don't ask anymore,
Like if you constantly have to fear your job, you carry that with you. And if you have experience, like they just let you go, then you carry that with you unless, you are able to somewhat make closure in that. And it's like to make the circle full from dating to uncoupling, right? But
I love it.
The way you start a business relationship and the way you end, like especially the ending carries into all future relationships, also business. So, if you experienced in your job that, you came in on a Friday morning expecting nothing bad and all of a sudden your employer says, oops, we have to let you go. And like you experience, everybody knew this already, like weeks and just didn't, like then this mistrust and this heartache goes into all future business experiences. You will be like more on the lookout, like, am I safe? Are they sharing information? And it's the same with heartache. The way you end a relationship, if it was a betrayal, if there was no proper closure to it, you carry that heartache wound into every relationship and be like, oh, can I trust this message? Can I trust that? And this insecurity, I feel we carry this heartache wound on a collective level so much because we don't pause to actually, heal what we experienced because there is great companies out there. There is great leaders out there. There is great colleagues out there. There's people out there who want to make your life more joyful and easier, who want us to have a good time, who show up And then very often they have to fight like all these projections or all your past traumas that you bring, and without knowing. And they have to fight so hard to get your trust. So it's like, do the inner work for yourself, for people around you, heal that heartache that you still carry from when you were 14, from what you carry when you did your first job, heal those heartache wounds, so that you can give forward and actually, show up authentically, safe, open to see the beauty that you can create together in a company.
I just thought, also when we heal, when we do our inner work, I think it makes us resilient, because companies will change. Maybe they have to lay off people. It happened to me, for example, twice with tech companies, and it was a financial decision, that they had to lay off so many people in the US and in Europe. And it's not personal, so it can happen in some industries. I never took it personal, and I knew there is so much abundance out there. There is a new job somewhere. And it was interesting because I had an offboarding coach. She was external. The company offered 3 coachings, and I thought, why not? It's for free.
Sounds
of course,
amazing.
I thought, why not? And she was so amazing, really, really cool person. We had a Zoom call, and she said, how are you? How do you feel? And I was like, I'm good. I'm actually really okay. I said, yeah, now, of course, I have to sit down and take a bit of time to reflect what I want to do. But I said, I'm not. She said, are you mad? Are you sad? And I said, well, to be honest, of course, I was shocked, But then I was like, it's all right, I'm positive. And she told me, very often she has people in front of her that are so frustrated. And I think when you do this inner work, you are open for change. You're, you don't have let's say, of course, maybe it still makes you sad, or you're irritated, or you think, okay, shoot, maybe I liked my job, but now I have to move on. But it's not that it doesn't kill you. Let's frame it like this. And I think it's the same with relationships, because when you talked about the TED Talk and your personal story, I mean, everything in our life can change. Nothing is constant in this life. You can have an amazing job and you can lose it. You can have an amazing boss and maybe he quits. And then you have a boss who is not so nice. Everything can change. I think it's about doing your inner work and being open and ready, whatever happens in your life, that you're grounded, that you don't see it as a tragedy.
So storytelling also matters with regards to your own storytelling to yourself, right? So the way that you, for yourself, create your inner, let's say, museum of past experiences influences the way that you show up and you continue. So if your inner museum shows how you showed up at that job, how you had all those conversations, how you did the best you could, and also how you received the information you needed in order to digest what just happened, it helps. I once supported a software team. It was 80 people in total, and we went through a layoff. So I was, as agile coach, supporting them on that journey. There was this moment where I knew what was happening a week in advance. My job in that moment was to support the leadership team to actually speed up letting out information and let me do my job, which is support every individual and the team to actually feel what needs to be felt. Because what you fear as a leader is, as soon as I say that, they're going to drop the pencil, they're not going to do anything, they're not going to help us do the things that still needs to be done. Like, that's the story that's happening in a leadership mind of why I'm not sharing what needs to be shared. So, like, my job as agile coach or as uncoupling coach in the business setting in that moment is really to help everyone feel what needs to be felt. I am sad right now. We actually sit together as a group, co-regulating for the next hour, and then we know that we still need to do work to find a good ending, a good closure for all of us, where we all are able to have in our mind a museum that is, we did this great thing, we are proud of it. We were so proud of it, we actually felt sad in the moment that we heard it's going to end. And we did what needed to be done in order for this whole room to look pretty and, hand it off, or like also share that story in the future. So often it just needs that reminder of being human, creating transparency and a safe setting.
I had a very amazing manager back then. He knew it, I think, also a week before. And in this week, he did research for new positions within the company, but also externally. And when he told me that, I was like, oh my God, this is so nice, you know. So there are ways to be human as a leader. Maybe you have to lay off people, but there are so different ways how you can do it, right?
Which was also, what happened in our case.
When it comes to customers, so let's talk about relationships. When it comes to, let's say, you want to sell your products or services to prospects or customers. When we look at the relationship principles you talked about, what do you think? What's important there to build authentic customer relationships?
It's such a depends answer, but let's say a few general things. Also, in a world global and digital, we have access to so many more humans, potentially to so many more customers, right? To be honest with yourself, how many customers can I actually serve and create an experience where they are like, I want to come back? The people, the customers, the clients that I already have, maybe it's just worth, spending more time with them and going on a longer journey with them and, really building that long-lasting trust rather than constantly aiming for more. Like, let's, for example, look at the whole negotiation industry. Like, I'm a vendor and you are a customer. There's more and more companies trying out more transparency in that relationship, be it, sharing really costs, sharing, data and information so that it's clear. Let's not waste our time in this whole negotiation dance. Let's just, do that. But there's also beauty in negotiation, because often when you also look outside of price, there's many other opportunities where we can actually, benefit from one another or give each other something that we need that is outside of price. So I'm not saying don't negotiate. Like, a lot of growth can come from there. If your customer is, private person, coming back to the meaning of words, put your actions where your mouth is. Like, really show up for what you are promising, especially in times of social media. So much misuse and so much also loss of trust was done. We were both raised in Germany, but, in Germany, an accomplishment in the 1900s and the 20th century was to have institutions where you can complain about something, and companies had an incentive to actually make sure that what they say is what they deliver, or where they knew feedback would be shared there in these places. And then we continued the journey, and all of a sudden we had Trustpilot or other online platforms where you can read.
Are very transparent. I think
you can read these things, and all of a sudden you cannot even trust these anymore because there are bots who write these things.
That's true as well. Yeah, that's another point. Yeah.
So it all comes back to, I will say the same thing. How are you with yourself, being customer or being vendor? Knowing your values, daring to ask those questions. Do you feel safe enough to give feedback? Can you test maybe in advance? Take responsibility for doing your own research. Also questioning if the things there are really giving you the information that you need. And this is where I feel, how can you establish a wording that is not just sales, buy me.
It's bringing value, actually, giving back. I was speaking on conferences, and I worked in pre-sales as a solution engineer, and I remember this one conference, and I think it was in Cologne. I really wanted to bring value. That's always the thing when I'm on stage. I want to bring value. I don't want to do sales. I don't talk about the product. I don't talk about the software. My slides are always funny. I put docs on my slides. That's my thing, seriously. And for me, it's always an edutainment, I call it. And I want to give something. I don't want to stand there for 25 minutes or 30 minutes and just say, hey, we are so great. Come by. And I got feedback afterwards. So luckily, my manager loved it. But I got feedback from participants from this big conference. And they said, we loved it so much because you were one of the few speakers who didn't talk about the software, and about the product. And you didn't try to sell. You really brought value. Yeah. And afterwards, I got contacts. So they gave me their business cards. It was funny because then one sales guy criticized. He came to my boss and he said, she didn't say anything about our software, And he laughed and he said, yeah, but, potential customers, they love it. It's about giving. I think this makes you also authentic. It's, again, how to build your network. You build it with giving. Of course, at some point when you work in pre-sales, you want to sell, but you first want to prove that the other person, like you can trust you.
You wanted to be of service and give something forward. You wanted, to create a good, fun time for everyone. And C, you also wanted to have a good time. Yeah. So your energy was already also captivating and, fun. I think when I said, words matter so much, and also the things that we don't say matter so much, this would be in the category of you're actually not, pitching or selling. Who is able to hear that? And usually those that hear it build a stronger bond, right? Like to hear the things that are not being said, to hear the things that are between the line. I am not trying to, marketing you into all of these things. I'm actually, here we are doing this thing, but I want you to take away this instantly right here, right now. Talk to me, let's meet, it's a different energy in that sense. And we are living in a world where things are very loud. It's sometimes
shiny.
Even like loud wins almost, right? Like in my first jobs, I was always pushed to be louder, to, take up more space and to really get to the point where I realized, look, like I have my own, level of noise. And it's not always what you want me to be. I want to be true to myself first and foremost. I will challenge myself. I will see where I can be louder, which stage can I stand on, right? Yeah. Like, but I'm not going to be that, you're not going to form me to something I'm not, because it's going to carry into everything I do.
It's also not authentic.
It's not authentic, right? And there is so much noise in this world right now. So I think it's so peaceful if we can actually, sit for a moment, think, and then we remember something and buy from a place that is not nervous system overregulation, but actually, grounded. This is what I need. This is what I want. Like there are so many things how to build a customer relationship, and there are so many things how you take responsibility for the things that you buy, and the marketing tricks that you fall into, and learn from that, and find your own standards and how you are going to sell your things. And I'm someone, who really tries to see the things that are not being said, or let's say we have the same. I mean, we have all these brands with these flashy, marketing, and they put all this money into billboard charts and, the flashlights, la, la, la. And, ooh, surprise, like they have shitty productions somewhere in the world, or like, because their money goes to other things. And I'm not someone who is a huge fan of wearing these labels. I got lucky in my university. I got to go to Milan once, and it was actually, exploring the world of luxury.
What did you study?
I studied international business. That was my bachelor. Back then I went on a study field trip to Italy, and it was to explore the luxury industry. And we were in Milan, and I am so thankful for this experience, because we went into some of the most secret and most expensive, high-end shops to understand that some of these high-quality brands that actually, very clearly where the material is coming from and where it was sourced. And it's like all beautiful stories. It's not even with the organic label. It's just, beautiful, carefully selected material. And you hear the story and you're like, oh my gosh, if I put that on, I carry that story, I carry that energy, that beauty. And the only thing how you would tell this is, a high-priced, high-value jacket that I'm wearing is because there's like a fine red line stitched like somewhere here. That's all. If you don't know it, you will not know that this is a high-value jacket, right? Like
it's beautiful. It's not about showing off. It's just about you, that you feel good, right?
Yes.
It's a completely different, how do you say? Reason to wear luxury brands. Because some people, most people, I think, when they buy these big labels on their, shirt, it's about showing off a little bit, at least, I think.
Filling
so
some
I think
some
this
cups,
is a different,
right?
Yeah, this is a different story.
But this is why, for me, I can translate every topic that we talk about to the subject of conscious relating, because the way I consciously relate with what I put on, with what I eat, with the people that I surround myself with. I can choose to just, go with the flow or follow the stories that are on big flashlights, or I can choose to actually, be for a moment and hear the story and feel how it nurtures me.
Amazing. Do you have a last word, advice I would love to continue talking, but I'm just I lost the sense of time, to be honest.
Yeah.
I have no feeling for time anymore. We could just continue.
I think the quote that summarizes most of the things for me is also from my TED Talk. Most of us invest more into our career skills than into our relationship skills. And you can translate that to all areas of life. Most of us invest more into how to make more money, career, how to get that skill, how to compete, than into consciously being in the here and now and building conscious relationships with all areas of your life.
And it has a big effect.
It yields the highest return over the years, right? In terms of happiness, that will attract the right people into your life. That it exponentially grows, but it grows in a different realm. Sometimes I feel like many are still building their career instead of living a life, right? And ideally, you can do both things together, exactly, right? Yeah. There's nothing wrong with a career. Like, we need leaders in this world who make a change, and ideally, they have started with just the smallest conflict in their little bubble to do the job we need to be done on a global scale.
Beautiful. Love that. Thank you so much. Thanks for all the inspiring insights, Marcella.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for listening to us today.